Hi, I'm Leanne. I'm a lightworker and a mother to 3 special girls. I strive to continue learning, growing, and to collect new skills. I'm a psychic medium, Reiki master teacher, and Akashic Record reader and energy healer. I am so excited to share what I've learned and what I'm going to learn and the ups and downs of life. Thank you for joining me on my journey. Welcome to Life of a Lightworker podcast. Hello, this week I have Allison on as a guest. She is the other half to Soulstar Energy Collective. I talked to Mandy last week on the podcast. Allison is an intuitive reader, healer, and medium. She has learned how to read energy, work in the Akashic Records, perform shamanic and galactic healings, and she is a certified Reiki practitioner. She absolutely loves sharing this amazing and transformative energy with others through readings and healings, along with empowering others to harness their own intuitive abilities by leading and teaching. Thank you for joining me as we learn more about Allison. Thank you so much for being with me today, Allison.
Yay! I'm so excited.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I just love talking to you.
Oh, I love talking to you.
I had your other half on. It'll be the week before that this one airs, so it's gonna be a lovely little tasting of you.
It's bringing us back to when we first met, right? And I think you met with Mandy first, and then you met with me when that program. So that's kind of cool. God. It is. That is. How
I didn't put that together.
I know.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I guess that's the way it had to be.
It had to be that way.
It had to be. Oh my God. I love that so much. Oh, perfect.
Me too. Synchronicities all over the place. I love synchronicities.
They're the best.
Yeah.
Nothing gets you more excited and gets the little spark flowing, like noticing all these little signs. You just it's all juicy and delicious.
It does. It's all juicy and delicious. You totally sound like my counterpart. She loves her descriptive words.
I love it.
I love it.
So I want to know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
I know I listen to the podcast, of course. So I do know a bit about you, as you guys love to share.
Yes.
But there's some maybe more detailed things or going more in depth that maybe you don't think is interesting that I want to know.
Okay. So I was what part? So
I want to talk. Well, I want to start with your childhood.
Okay.
And kind of go through your journey from there.
Ooh,
so first,
so fun.
Where did you grow up?
Ooh, okay. I grew up in Mississauga, Ontario. So that is where my stomping grounds were.
Did you stay there your whole childhood?
Yep.
Does your family still live there?
So I have some family. So basically, so I grew up there. I think it was early 20s that I ended up coming out to Victoria with my grandma, just for a 6-month stint. My aunt and uncle were out here, and I knew my parents wanted to retire in Victoria. And we were always just such a close family. So it was kind of well, you can't go to Victoria without us. And so I remember coming out for 6 months. I lived with my Nana next to my aunt and uncle, and I just went to college. And then when I got back to Ontario, my sister had broken up with a boyfriend, and it was okay, if this is going to happen, it needs to happen now before we meet significant others, right? We're early 20s, so we were in that stage of getting tied down. So we jumped in the car that summer and we drove across Canada, my sister and I, and set up camp here. And then a few years later, my parents retired and moved out and moved my grandma out. So we basically moved everybody out here. I still have an aunt and an uncle back east, but other than that, we moved everybody out here. So
that's awesome. You just all transplanted together.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I know.
Moving to your desired location, but not having to lose your family ties because they're willing to come too.
I know. I'm look at that. I'm like thinking my parents, like, you know, obviously they always wanted to retire there. And it's probably like one of those things to be like, but our girls. So like, man, it worked out that we're like, okay, we'll go there first.
I love that. Oh, that's awesome.
So lucky. And we live 5 minutes. No, not even. I can walk to my sister's in 5 minutes, but we live literally like, we're like a couple of minute drive from each other. Oh, we're just losers.
Oh, that's not losers. If you get along, it's not being losers.
No, it's not. I was like, God, we sound disgusting. And like, some people would be like, really?
Oh no, it's dreamy.
It is.
Like anybody who yearns for that.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God, I'm drooling. I want that so bad. Like,
right. It is so nice. I do love it. I'm like, you know, maybe a significant other may not like it as much, but because you know, everybody's stopping in at any time and all that stuff. But it's like, yeah, it's like that's just how we've always been. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh. Yeah, I love those close family connections where they stay with you throughout your whole life. It's not, they don't just like fall away, or if they, you know, lessen because of the phase you're in, they just pick right back up and are super strong.
Yes, that's exactly, yes, absolutely. We've definitely had those like especially with me on this journey and stuff, we've definitely had times where all of a sudden it was like a little bit less, and you know, you feel that kind of, but you always know that underlining tie is always going to be there, that they're never going to, they may not agree with what you're doing, but they're never going to, you know, disappear.
Right. They're not going to like cut you out.
No.
Never.
No.
Yes. Oh, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
From your childhood, it could be when you're early childhood or later. What is your favorite memory? So when you think of a memory from your childhood, what pops in your mind as being one that brings you the most joy?
Oh, geez. So many. I think like, okay, I'll just like, cause there's so many that I feel like I have, but, like I remember this memory of like my dad. So he would come home later at night. He'd have to travel from Toronto to Mississauga. And I remember one time we would just play games, like we'd be playful, right? So whether it was hide and go seek or stuff like that. And I remember one time we turned off all the lights in the house and I went down to the piano and I took the lowest key. And when he walks in the door, it's like, dong, dong. And then I'm like,
oh my God.
My poor dad is probably like so exhausted, happy to be home.
And it's good foreshadowing for what you do later.
It's so true. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, it's just like, we always kind of like had those moments. Like my dad was very playful. You know, I remember we used to like sit in the garage when there would be a huge storm, because in Ontario, I miss the storms. We don't have it here in Victoria. And I remember we would, you know, sit in the garage, open up the garage door, have snacks, and literally sit in chairs and watch the storm go.
Oh, I love that.
I know. I'm like all these like little things that you're just kind of like, oh man, they're so wholesome. And they're so small, but they were like so impactful for me. I'm like, I loved it. Yeah. So I had a lot of those moments growing up. I feel very blessed in that I was able to have a lot of those memories.
I love how you said the little moments that are the most impactful, which is completely true. Like my fondest memories that pop up are the smallest ones. Maybe they happened all the time, but maybe just this one time it's stuck out in your mind.
Totally.
But like, watching the storms in our big living room windows.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I feel that, like getting the popcorn or chips with my brother and just like watching the storm.
Absolutely.
That's what we did.
Like just the fun. Yeah. It didn't cost anything. It's just those fun moments that, you know, you create. I remember like the Disney Channel would come on, because obviously we didn't have TV like we do today. And I remember Sunday night, Disney Channel would host a movie and everybody would get a popcorn and get downstairs and you'd wait for what Disney movie was coming on, right? Like all of these fun things that you're just like, man, man, like we really like, you think now, like with our kids and it's just, everything's at their fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
And back there, you was like, beggars don't be choosers. You were just like, what's playing? I'm so excited.
Yeah, you had no idea. They
No.
might show you a preview in the show before in a commercial, maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you had no idea.
No. And you sit through the commercials, right? The commercials were your pee breaks. Like
Yes.
you had to like run, go to the
Mhm.
bathroom, and it's coming back on. So I'm like, I know.
We only had one bathroom too, so it's like, hurry up, because everyone's got to go. And this is the summertime, and then we lived on a farm, so I guess people could go outside if they wanted to, but
Papa squat. Yeah, that would work.
there was mostly boys in the house, so they could
they're
do that.
so lucky.
Oh,
I
man.
just can't. I know.
It would be nice to pee in public without exposing yourself.
Oh my gosh, and not getting it all over yourself.
Like,
right? Like
there is, and now we're digressing, but there is a technique. You have to manage your flow.
Oh, you can't go
direction,
yes.
And you have to like hold yourself in a certain spot, and like you have to like play around with it.
You gotta and you gotta make sure nothing comes and bites your butt. You know?
I think I've got like some. Well, I'm a farm kid, right? So
mosquitoes.
You get some mosquito bites. Yeah.
That's, I know. But as a boy mom, I will have to say that was so convenient.
Oh yes.
I would, right? I'm like, I would watch my sister, and she had girls, and she would have to like hold their hands, and they'd pop a squat back, and they'd be like, Mom, help me. And I would be like, just go by that tree. And they would just take care of it themselves.
I know. I'm so jealous of all the boy moms. Like because in some places it's not, you can't really get a girl to squat properly without big show. So we have like a little porta potty, those little potty things in our car. Because when you're at the park, you don't want to leave, heaven forbid if you leave early.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Oh, I know. I'm like, it was just so, I remember looking and being like, oh, wow. I really wanted a girl, and I'd look at these little moments and be like, damn, well, you just lucked out on that one, Allison. I'm like, that was easy. Just go over to that tree, do it yourself.
Oh, it's that
easy button.
Yeah, I'm just like that button. Thank you. You know exactly what I'm talking
about.
I
know exactly what.
Push my air button, and you know what I'm doing.
Oh, I know exactly what you do, because I push that easy button all the time. I'm like, where's the easy button? That's how I like to live life.
Why make it harder than it has to be?
I know.
I know. We have to overcomplicate things for like the appearance for other people.
Oh, it's so silly. And so I'm like, no, I've always kind of been like, oh, let me get the easy button. So I'm like, where is it? I know. So
yeah, it's not lazy. It just makes sense. It's practical. It's time efficient.
Thank you. Yes, I like being efficient. Not fancy.
Me too. See, this is where we connect. I'm not fancy, but I am very efficient.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Oh. So funny.
Beautiful. And I'm going to steer back to my questions.
Good. It's gonna happen a lot.
It's gonna be fine. It's all good. So from your childhood, on your spiritual journey towards where you are now, what were some key stopping points or key moments that were important? Maybe not for your awakening, but for your growth and development. Yeah. And then that led on to your awakening.
Totally. It's funny because like as a child, so I grew up going to church. And I remember going to church, like Christian camps in the summer, all the things. And I remember always questioning, like, I was always like, I would question the narrative that was being spoken, at church or to my grandparents who were very religious, or at, the Christian camp. I remember doing an overnight, and questioning the camp counselor on something because it didn't make sense to me. And it was like, I always knew there was something, but like what they were telling me wasn't like hitting home. There was like, but if you're saying this, why does this happen? Or if you're saying this, and I'm just that type of person, I need to fully understand it. And so, I remember like there was different incidences as a child. So it's like a young child. I remember one night going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and it was a storm, so all the lights were out, and I remember seeing a figure at the end of the hall, and screamed my head off. And my dad came running out, tripped over the dog, all the things, right? But these things get dismissed as nothing. And then as I got older, I remember we moved to a new house. So it was the only second house I'd ever lived in. And now I'm like a teenager, and things just started happening more. I remember, in my bedroom, I was always getting in trouble for leaving a lamp on. And I was like, would swear I turned it off. And I remember one day being like, you're going to remember you turned it off. So I'm like, turned it off, went up on my day, got in trouble. The light was turned back on. I remember being like, okay, I know I turned that off, yeah. Right? And then I remember waking up one night in that house and seeing like a figure standing at the end of my bed. And it was like a old, like I could still see it, an old soldier. And I remember wondering, like in my head, like, I wonder if there was like war here or something. Like all these questions started coming into my head. And even like with my family, like I remember we would swear that somebody was home. Like I'd be downstairs on the computer, and I'd be like, oh, hey, who's home? And it happened to all of us. So I was very like active. So I would say that was the most active it started becoming. And it's just things started to become more active in my life. I would dog sit or house sit. And I remember my sister was like this big mansion. We thought we were so cool. It was a very, very big mansion. They had like the intercoms in all the rooms. Mm-hmm. And I remember her and I were like getting ready to go out, and we were playing music on the intercom system. And all of a sudden this voice, the music stops, and this voice comes over, like this very like, and it was like it was the craziest thing. And I was like, what the? And then my sister like comes in, and I'm like, and she was like, did you hear that? I'm like, mm-hmm. And I was like, but I can't. I was like, I'm not going to get freaked out, because I'm just going to freak her out, and then we're going to run out of this mansion and never come back. And it was like all of these like crazy things happened there. It was so nuts. But it was like, I would say like closer to my development, like I was always interested in psychics, always. I was always interested in planets and the stars. Like I remember just being so curious about what's out there, and just drawn to the stars. And, I think it was more when it really it was my adulthood when it really kind of clicked in for me. And it was, before it was always like just a curiosity, and I loved going to a psychic, and it was fun and all those things. I totally believed in all of it, but never believed that I had any position or I could do this type of thing. And it wasn't until my son, I guess it really was when my son was seeing spirits, and I ended up stepping up, like I needed to learn more type of thing. Mm-hmm. And that kind of like propelled me onto the journey of like understanding it. And then obviously going down this path of developing it type of thing. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Love it. So fun.
If you could go back to yourself when you were maybe a teenager or early 20s,
yeah,
what would you say to yourself then that would encourage you towards this path, or just help you along it, make it, or what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I think the biggest advice I'd give myself is to not care what people think. That was a hard thing on this journey for me, as an adult, as where I'm at. A couple of years ago, like I wouldn't tell anybody that I developed my intuition. I wouldn't, I didn't feel safe to put it on social media. All of those things. This was a big transformation in a short period of time. And so I think I would like look back, and I just wish I didn't care so much what other people thought. I in my early 20s, like it wasn't in my perception, like, and I guess it would be, also being able to know that that was something, that it wasn't just for special people, that everybody can have that, and to trust yourself more and to listen to yourself more, trust the little inklings that you're having. But I think the biggest thing for me that got in my way was caring what other people thought. I was just so self-conscious, and too much focus on that, like that kind of consumed me, that would have, so many aspects in life, right, would have kind of like helped if I was just like, I'm just gonna dance to my own beat, and not be scared to do so. Right. So
how many people, especially women, girls, need that?
Right.
They just care way too much about other people's opinions, other people's views, more so than our own.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I still battle with that all the time. Like, it's such a hard program to release. And, it's just something that, you look back and you think, oh man, if I didn't care so much about what people thought, I wouldn't have cared about so much about my body image, right? Yeah. That would have been one of them. And just the freedom that you would have from that. Like, I admire people that, like, I really admire people when you do meet somebody that's just like, I don't care. And I'm like, man, I want to be like you.
Right? Yeah. And when people don't care about certain things about themselves, about other people's opinions, they don't care if you do something as well. So they give you so much freedom to be yourself.
Yeah. Like, and you can see that freedom in them, right? Yes. Like that freedom, like not in the sense of I don't care and I'm gonna, I don't care if I hurt people and stuff like that, but like like the fact that you can just be yourself, and you can, like, I was never a trend setter with like clothes. Oh no. Allison waited until it was full into trend, because don't want to go outside that box. Right. Take that risk,
Well, what if you get it wrong?
I know. Or people are going to be like, before it becomes trendy, they're going to be like, those are stupid. And I'm like, what? But you had those people in school that all of a sudden they just would wear, and I would be the one that would be like, I wouldn't say it obviously, but I remember I'd be like, oh no, I would never wear those. And then, 6 months later, it's the trend and I'm wearing them. So, right. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, but I admire people like that can just do it.
Yeah. I completely agree. I've taken upon myself to try to be more like that, push myself to be more like that.
Yes.
And I can see my baby steps along the way. But there's still many steps to go. There's so many times from childhood where you either were told you had to be a little quiet or be like everyone else, or you just felt like you needed to for some reason. Like, I think that empathic kind of thing where you could just kind of pick up on other people's expectations of you and you just took them on.
Oh yeah, I definitely feel that, like, chameleon. It's one of those things, like, I feel like being a chameleon, because I definitely am, it can serve you and not serve you, like at work and dealing with customers and clients and being able to be adaptable to who's in front of you. Definitely, I would say my superhero. Yeah. We kind of like talk about like, what's your super strength? And I'm like, yeah, I can adapt to who's in front of me. I can, it helps me connect with people easily, and I can establish those relationships. So I definitely see the value in that. But I also can see where it's like, that's a very tight line to like walk, because, even though you can like, it's easy to get along with everybody and anybody because you can adapt yourself. It's like, when do you start losing yourself and start just making it what everybody else wants to? So that's definitely like this, like ever since kind of like going down my awakening path, it's just been such a personal journey, right? It's like such a growth of like, who the hell am I? Exactly. So it's just, yeah.
Well, yeah, I feel that very deeply, where it's like, you think of it as a good thing because you can get along with so many people, but then you take those pretend pieces of you and form it into what you think is the real you, but it's just a shell. It's a coating. It's not the real you. You don't actually know who you are. So through this awakening, through all this stuff, you have to rediscover who you are, learn what you like, what you don't like, all that kind of stuff, because how much of what you have portrayed to the world is just pretend you.
Oh,
That you've built
exactly.
over time.
And you've lost, like, you don't even know yourself. But, and I think a lot of people, in this work, doing this work and connecting to people, at a soul level, when you're like going that deep with somebody, you realize a lot of us don't know who we are.
Yeah.
A lot of us are, living life from these programs or these expectations that were placed on us at a very young age, and we've just accepted it. And so, I think a big part is, like, I know in my readings, there's been a ton of readings that I'm directing them to do some inner work, like figure out who you are, because once you know who you are, it's like, I don't know, it's like you step into your power. I've changed so much. And I always kind of say it's like Allison 2.0, because I haven't changed in the sense that I'm like, nobody can recognize who I am. And man, like, she really, she's really weird or whatever it is. I'm like, it's like, I still have those fundamental things of myself that I know that are my core, but I've let go of the things, and I'm still in that process, but I can definitely see when that shift was happening, because I was making people around me uncomfortable. And it was just kind of like just being like, actually, no, like, why do I have to be the docile one? Why do I have to just go with the flow? And why have I identified with that person? Like, people are like, oh, she's just, you're just so easy to get along with. You just go with the flow. And then you realize, like, you take that on like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
But then you're like, actually, I'm like giving up my own wants and needs so that I can hold this badge of honor that somebody's put on me, and it's like, you start to kind of realize, like, actually, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. And that's my opinion, and may rock the boat, but that's okay, Yeah.
Knowing when to hold your ground.
Totally. Yeah. And that was so hard, because I'm definitely a recovering people pleaser. And I still say recovering because it's still hard, but I'm like, I remember this one time that, so I have a sister and an older sister, and she's more volatile. So I've always been like the very kind of like go with the flow. I don't have like, I get very excitable, but I don't have like anger. Like, it don't snap. Like, it takes a lot for that to happen. And so my sister's always been that, like, like, oh, don't poke the bear. And then, and I remember we were like planning I think it was Canada Day or something like that. So my parents and my sister and her family and me and my family, and we were all planning something. And the plans, like, my sister can be quite flaky sometimes, and the plans would just like start changing and changing and changing. And so I was driving to an appointment. So I was going for a massage for an hour, so was not going to be able to be reached. I remember I like called or texted and I said, okay, so this is the plan. We're meeting at this beach at this time. Mom's bringing food, blah, 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 blah. Right? Yep. That's the plan. See you then. Perfect. I come out of my hour massage, and all of a sudden, like, my phone's just blown up with like, actually, we changed plans. Kelly wants to do a hike. And so we're going to this place, and we're going to do this, and we're going to hike in the food and all this stuff. And I was like, what? And I'm like, actually, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go for a hike. I don't want to have to, backpack the food in. Like, I really wanted to go to the beach that we originally were going, all these things. And I was just like, no, that was wrong. You guys can't change the plans without even consulting with me when you knew I couldn't make any, right? And so there was the first time, and I just kind of said, you know what, guys, you guys go enjoy. Me and the boys are going to go to, and my family are going to go to the other beach. Well, that was like, what? Like, it was, no, you can't do that. Like, no, like, we have to do this as a family. And I said, guys, and I was like, I'm not mad, but I'm not mad. Like, I am totally fine with me and my family going there, but I don't want to go to there. So I'm going to stick with the original plan. I'm not mad. We're good. You guys do what you need to do. Like, have fun. And I really wasn't mad. Like, I didn't care at that point, but it was such a big deal because it was like, no, we have to stay together and blah, blah, blah. So then it was like, everybody came to the original plan. My sister pouted the whole time. It was it was so bloody awkward. I was like, this is fun. It was just like, but it was like first time I kind of stood my ground to be like, actually, no, that was wrong. And you should have waited to get my opinion. And because I've always been the doormat that just kind of went with it, it shook feathers, right? I remember my sister being like, I think like 2 months later, her approaching me and bringing it up. And she was like, I was so hurt by you. And I remember being like, wow. But that was more like that was, I held a lot of compassion for my family at that time because I was changing the script, right? I understood that I was changing how I showed up, and it was going to take them time to catch up to that and to adapt to it. And so, I wasn't angry at that. I was kind of like, no, I'm changing the script, and they have to get to know the new Allison, and it's going to take this transition period. So, I'm not going to sit there and be like, you jerk.
Growing pains, just growing pains.
It's total growing pains. But it was like, but now, like, it's like the growing pains are over, and they kind of like, no, like they know Allison has an opinion too. Yeah.
I love, like, so many people have this idea that people don't change, people don't grow, people kind of stay the same. It's like, well, like your core being, that does stay the same because you're the same soul. Totally. But you're allowed to try on different things and see if they fit for what you want to become.
Totally. And I think, I think a part of it was because I was going down this spiritual path, there was this fear. So it's like all of a sudden I'm going down this spiritual path, and all of a sudden now I'm changing. Yeah. And so then it was like this fear, like, what have you gotten into? Like, is this I remember my mom being like, even insinuating that it's like a cult. And I was like, Mom, your church is more of a cult than my spirituality. Yeah. Right. Like, really. And it just was like, it was just this fear, because it was like, this Allison's changing, but she's also picked up or is down this path of the spiritual awakening. It must be that, like, it must be a bad thing type of thing. Yeah.
It's fear of the unknown. It's not even knowing what it is, whether it's good or bad. It's just, I'm not I don't know anything about this, so therefore I'm scared. I think that's a normal response for a lot of people.
Well, I remember it surprising me with my mom, because we always went to psychics. My mom went to psychic. So it wasn't like that was not part of, like, I've gone to psychic fairs, card readers. Like, it's just been always part of our, like, not like it's not like they were like hippies and that was their huge like type of thing. Like, but it was like
regular occurrence.
It was regular. Like my mom, like my mom went when she was younger. Like it wasn't an absurd thing. So I remember kind of being like, finding that odd, that I was like, what? I'm like, but you totally are into this stuff. So why are you scared that I'm going down this path? It was such a odd concept for me. I even felt kind of like, is it that she feels like if I'm going down this path, like I'll be able to see her deepest, darkest secrets?
The privacy thing.
The privacy thing. And I just, it was a really like difficult time for me, because it was like this transition of going into this spirituality and seeing things from a different perspective and having different opinions than your family, like in big things going on in the world, right? Like we had COVID happening during that time. There's big opinions all around the board, right? Like that was just with everybody, like that was just our society at that point. It became so much like my side, your side. And then when I started to awaken and my viewpoint started to change, because I before was completely with my family, and then my viewpoint started to change and shift, and I started to see things from a bigger picture, and I started to question things and all these things. And that, I think, was the big like, whoa,
yeah,
who's this girl that has a different opinion than our whole family?
Right. It's like, you're not going to join in this conversation of continuing on our current thought process.
It's like,
yeah, it's like,
it was like it. I definitely was like, wow, my higher self, my soul set me up to really push through the things that were uncomfortable for me, right? I don't like confrontation, hate it. And I was like, gosh, could they have not highlighted it? Like put me in this total, because I had to confrontation in general, but confrontation with my family, and to be the one on the outside. Yeah, you too,
Me
right?
too. Yep. Feel ya.
It's scary. It's scary. It takes a lot of courage to do that, right? So that was a big test. And I was like, thank you, higher self. Thank you.
Right. You're just like, you know what? You pushed me to grow. You pushed me to grow. And I must have needed it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it.
Totally. Exactly. And, you know, it's like, you know, and it's like when you're in it, it's very uncomfortable. But I found like
say
it's
the
like,
least, yeah.
Say the least. Oh God. Like it was just like, I don't know how many times like I had to push through the, you know, letting it go that somebody was like, my mom was mad or something like that. Like that's so hard. But, you know, it definitely helps being able to have that higher perspective too. It's so helps to be able to zoom out and take a step back and be able to see it for what it is, instead of like prior to awakening, I was just consumed by it. That was completely in my vision. It would have surrounded me. That's all I would have seen, where I would be able to go from that perspective, because of course you're still human and you're still living these lives. You'd be in that perspective when it's happening, but I would be able to take myself out and look at it from the bigger picture and be like, okay, Allison, you know why this is happening. Let's not get stuck in the right here, right now. Let's pull out and be like, this will pass, you know, and see that it's going to pass. And sure enough, it did pass, you know? Yeah.
I love that. I love any chance to remind people to step out of themselves and look from a higher perspective. It's never a bad thing. It's so easy to get like dragged into the moment and like feed off of the drama that's happening. It's so easy to get consumed by that. And like, you really have to consciously like, no, stop. I have to back up and look. Like, it doesn't come naturally, at least for me yet.
No, we'll always struggle with it, right? Because I always struggle with it too, right? Like there's so many times I get pulled down into the trenches, and you know, or you're with like friends and you get pulled into that like tunnel vision, or that, you know, gossiping, or that, you know, all those things. And you know, and I think one of the things we have to remember is we are still here living this human experience. So that's okay. Like, it's totally okay. And, you know, I'm going through a huge transition right now in life. And
sure are.
I sure am. And it's like, I can definitely get pulled into that tunnel vision where all I can see, and, you know, but I don't beat myself up when I do that, and I allow myself, because that's actually part of healing and growing, right? To go through it. I definitely don't want to bypass that part of it. Yeah.
Finding riding the line of being in it when you need to be in it, and out of it when you need to get the perspective. Like,
totally.
I guess maybe you'd never really know. You just have to feel it in the moment and see how it is. And like, you can always just flip back and forth if it's not right in the moment, I guess. Like, listen to your body.
Totally.
There's no right.
No. And I think the fact that you can flip back and forth is a gift, because prior to this, there was no flipping back and forth.
No, you were just in it.
You're just in it. Yeah. And so I guess like I look at that and think like, what a gift to be able to flip back and forth and recognize when, you know, when you maybe, you know, dropping below the line, or, you know, like I've had, like, I just am able to now even call myself out on things, because I can see it when I pull out and have the higher perspective, and I can be like, sweetie, you just, no, that's not you. Pull it back.
Popped into my head was choice. Yeah. We get to choose. When we are fully in it, we're not actually choosing. Our free will's not there, but when we choose, we're using our free will. That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to choose. And I'm like, oh, snap.
I love that. I know. I love it.
Like,
Oh,
I love
love
those
this
little
stuff.
nuggets that pop in. You're like,
I know.
yes. Oh, I feel that.
know. Yeah. Oh, I know. I love it. It's so fun.
During the last episode with Mandy, we talked quite a bit about what you were offering to the public and your plans for the future. And I'm just curious, from your perspective, what are your favorite things to offer as a service to other people? And also, what's your favorite thing to teach others? To be in this moment. Doesn't have to be all-time favorite, but in this moment, what's your favorite? Lights you up.
Yeah, I do love I love the teaching aspect of it. It's to be able to see somebody click. So to be able to be on this journey with somebody who, starts off where you started off yourself. And it's so funny because like when Mandy and I are teaching, it's like you can see yourself in every group. There's always somebody or a couple people that I'm like, oh, you're me. I can relate to you. Let's do this together. And what's great is like Mandy and I are very opposite. We always say, oh, there's our yin and yang. And so it's kind of great because we can teach to those yin and yangs, but for me, it just fills my heart when I see like somebody go through this journey and see them transform and see them step into their power and realize the capabilities that they have and the healing that's come from it. Like to see how much it's changed them on a fundamental and on a personal level, it just swells my heart. Like I can't even, that part just fills me up. And or if I'm doing like a reading for somebody and they get emotional or it somehow has impacted them. Like I have always been drawn to helping people. I remember I wanted to be a sex therapist when I was a kid. That it was
how little.
I know, not like little. Could you imagine?
When did you start having that dream?
I was 6 years old.
And did you understand what it was?
Yeah. I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I want to be a sex therapist. And I remember my mom convincing me not to, saying, oh, you're going to talk to people who want to like have sex with a dog or something. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. I don't want to talk to those people.
I think you can choose your clients a little bit.
Maybe. I was like, but that's what she put in my head. And I remember being like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. And I remember I wanted to be a therapist to youth at one point, but again, was convinced, like, oh, you don't make a lot of money when all of these things, but I always was drawn to helping people and in a therapy way, like in a way of like talking and stuff. And it was funny because I went into banking, completely opposite of any of that. But the crazy thing is that I would have appointments with clients and they would share deep things with me. And I don't know how many times I had clients say, oh my God, like, I feel like I just had a therapy session. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I opened up. And I remember like sitting there being like, oh my God, I was fulfilling what I needed. Because I was like, no, absolutely. I'm like, we would sit there for like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes. And we're talking a banking appointment.
Yeah.
and I would like be able, like, I remember one lady like leaving and saying, oh my God, like my husband's not going to believe, like I just had a marriage counseling appointment. And so it's just like, it was always there. It was always there that I wanted to help. And so now I'm like fulfilling that, I'm teaching other people how to become empowered and to step through the blocks that they've given themselves. And we're teaching them how to connect back to their soul. But when I'm doing one-on-one with anybody, like it's a counseling. It totally feels like a counseling. And Mandy will tease me all the time. Because my readings like typically can last like, sometimes like I've had a lot go an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Oh my.
Yes. Yeah. And so she's always like teasing me. And I was like, the thing is like, it's when we have a connection and somebody's opening up to me and like, I just don't even think about the time. Like it's being able to hold space for somebody and that I'm able to like help them. Like that was what I've always been drawn to. So I don't care about the time that it takes. To me, like when I can hold that space for somebody and help them, potentially move through something, like that just lights me up. I just love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you get so much from the exchange just from being there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, so yeah, it's just like, I realize like my soul has always been calling me to that. And I, soon realized when I was developing my intuition and I remember, you think of a psychic, you think of like, am I going to get that house or the surface level stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And I soon realized like my guide was like, that's not what you're here for. And I'm like, oh, come on. I'm like, people don't want to hear all the deep stuff and like the stuff that needs to be healed. But it became very apparent that the information I was going to receive was not going to be the surface level. It was going to be the healing part of it. And it was going to be going after those shadows that need to be exposed to help people kind of bring it up and heal it. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to be the fun one.
Well, like, you are.
Isn't that such a contrast? Because I'm like, I'm between Mandy and I, like, I'm more the one that, I don't know, I'm ridiculous. I feel like I'm a child at times. But then it's like, but then I get the serious guide, spirit guide, very, very serious. And the readings, like it definitely is, what they're bringing up is like that healing, that serious part of it. And so it's just so ironic that
it's perfect balance, because if you were super serious during the reading and
delivering
a lot of heavy stuff, and then you were serious and heavy afterwards, you wouldn't have any levity to pull that person out of that to be able to go on with their day. You need that lightness, your laughter, your joy, just the way you speak, your energy you bring in. It pulls them out of that heaviness. So even though they're working on it, it kind of just lifts them up. Like it just, I don't know, it feels like that would be a better union than just light, heavy. Like heavy. You need the dualities to balance.
That's true. I didn't think of it that way. Thank you, Leanne.
You're welcome.
It must be my Gemini coming out, my twins.
Oh, boy, snap. Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, there's so many different versions of myself. I don't even know. It's the Gemini. I'll blame it on that.
You're like, I'm multifaceted. I'm just multifaceted.
I know. I'm like, I don't know who we're getting today.
It's adventure.
It is
adventure.
Right? Super exciting.
Yes. Awesome. I love it. Instead of being like, oh, who am I today? You're like, who am I today?
Who am I today?
Buckle up.
Let's have fun.
Exactly. I love that.
I love it. Yeah. It's fun. Keeps you on your toes.
Exactly. And is there anything special that you want to share with us about what's coming up that you're really excited about personally?
Ooh, oh God, there's always so much. Mandy and I are just like always like percolating different things, like all these things. And it's so funny because you just like want to just do it all, but then it's like, okay, things come as, pace. And so so we like, obviously we have our courses that we teach, and what we're kind of like we've been doing this, something we've been working on for a while, and we really want to bring it forward, is holding space for our students afterwards. So like an alumni type of space to continue on that journey, because it is an ever growing journey. So even once you learn all the things, even once you go and be like, oh my God, I met my spirit guide. Oh my God, I know how to read energy. What? I can go the Akashic Records. I can heal. Like, it's such a fast journey, and all of a sudden you get it. But then it's like, after that is when you really start learning, because that's when like spirit starts working with you individually, and you start experiencing things that other people haven't experienced. And it's a beautiful process. And so, that's something that Mandy are like, we want to be help and support and be a part of. So we are definitely going to be offering like an alumni space that everybody and anybody who's taken any one of our courses can be a part of, so that we can all kind of grow together and stay in that community. We've talked about we've talked about like a course, and this would be right up my alley, about healing and shadow work. Yeah, because it's such a big, that's something we've recognized throughout this whole journey, is that is laced into everybody's journey. So whether they're going down this spiritual awakening journey, that shadow work, that inner work is there, whether they are just doing a personal journey and wanting to understand themselves more, that is there. So that is something we've kind of like tossed around that we think is really important. And so to kind of do a course or something that's going to help lead people through that healing process and tapping into the shadows within, and, you know, being able to bring them to surface to heal them. So that's kind of like, it's kind of like there.
And that's something you could take at any point, because you're never stop doing shadow work. There's always new shadows that come forward.
Always. And like they come in layers, right? Something that you think you've healed, and then it all of a sudden shows up again. Like it's just part of life. And it's a constant journey of moving through those things. So yeah, it's as much as it sounds like shadow work.
No, it's just learning about yourself.
Totally. And it's bringing light to aspects of yourself that maybe you don't want to admit or see. And those are the things we actually need to bring to the surface and see. Yeah.
Well, I just thought of, it's not just like dealing with the shadow and healing the shadow. It's you're illuminating the shadow. So you realize it's not scary. It's not bad. It's just a part of you.
Totally. And like just the fact that you're accepting it. And like, that's when you gain control and power over it. Because when it's hanging out in the shadows, it's got control over you. But when you bring it to the light and you're like, hey, now you're on display, you can't go anywhere. Who's in control there? You are. So, you know, like that's a big, and, you know, and I can like hear people, I don't always like, happens in our podcast how many times I'm like, I can hear people say, what's a shadow? I hear you. And so like, for instance, I had one that came up very early in my journey. And I remember my first oracle card deck, and I pulled the card envy. And I was like, ugh. I'm like, that's a stupid word. And so I remember the next day pulling a card, and it was envy again. And I was like, I'm like, ew, I don't like that word. And so I'm like, the third day, I like shuffle. I like did the best shuffle ever. And I pulled envy again. And I was like, oh my God, fine. And so I was resisting it. That was big time. And I was like, fine, I will look, where do I have envy in my life? Where am I envious? And I, you know, brought this word, this part of me that obviously I did not like. And in my body, I felt disgusted by it. And I brought it to the surface, and it was like understanding, okay, where, and I had to be truthfully honest with myself. Where do you have envy in your life? Where are you seeing this envy? And once I was able to identify where I saw the envy, I was like, then it was dissecting and being like, well, why are you envious? What does that, what's making you feel envious? And, you know, I was able to draw all the way down to the root of it, which was my own self-worth. You know, and so, you know, that's an example of bringing a shadow to the surface and then actually dissecting it and getting to the root of it. So it wasn't envy itself. It was my own inner, you know, how I felt about myself. And it was just a byproduct of that. So there's.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be huge. Like sometimes it can be.
Totally.
But like it can also be little things, like just little tiny shadows that maybe you need a little flashlight for. And totally, it comes in all shapes and sizes, just like people.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's not scary. It's beautiful.
Exactly. Just think of like, instead of, oh, I have all these shadows, it's like, let's see how much light I can shine on myself.
Absolutely. You know, and awareness is totally, and like awareness is the first step of all of it, right? Once you can admit and be aware of it, then you can catch yourself when all of a sudden you're like, you're being envious. Why? And you can stop and kind of go within. Like it's just the awareness. Yeah.
It's big.
It is big.
Yeah. Awareness is like probably the biggest key. And
and being
once you have it, you can't go back.
No. Oh man, I know, right? Don't you find like on this spiritual journey, I'm like, once that veil was lifted, once that was pulled, and I had this awareness of like so much more beyond, it's like you can't cover that away anymore. It's like
Mhm.
it's there. You see it. Yeah. So
What's done
cool.
is done.
Done.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go back.
No,
It's
never.
still better. It's way better. I'm glad you can't
Totally.
take it back because what if someone tried to like take it away? Like it's impossible. It's there.
No, it's there. No. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm so glad, yeah, to not take it back. I'm like, it is help. Like I look at things like, I'm moving through a separation right now. And I definitely see like the difference of moving through it now. And I can see how I would have moved through it, 3, 4, 5 years ago would have been totally different. And so I'm like, thank God I am here and I can go through it the way I'm going through it and not creating karma or, stuck energy and all that stuff. Like it's,
Well,
yeah.
and you're not creating all this stuff for your kids.
Totally.
Like that's huge.
It is
It's
huge.
It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm just like, it's just made it so much better for my kids and all of that. So I'm just like, damn, I'm like, yeah, you see where it can be like, so even though I do feel like the awakening was probably, it was definitely contributed to the separation. I think only in the sense that I was able to see things for what they were instead of living in a fog and just continuing on. So not in the sense like it was like, oh my God, the awakening. And I was like, see you later. But it definitely opened my eyes to things. So yes, it contributed to it, but then I was able to, be able to move through it at a higher level, I would say, like, higher level. What is that? That sounds pompous.
Well, like you weren't stooping to someone's
No,
level.
I do. And and so that's totally it, because like, the whole time I've been like, my biggest priority is my relationship with my kid's dad. And so if that means like, I'm not going to go and stoop below or get stuck on small things, like the material things. I don't care. I don't care. Where maybe before I would have had the justice side and been like, well, that's not fair, and stuck my heels in and been like, I never, I would have still had I want to have the best relationship with my kid's dad for sure, but I could have gotten very stuck in the justice side because I have a very strong sense of justice. And so that is one thing I have found where I'm just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm like, the bigger picture. My mic just dropped. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. I was all fine. It all perfect. Yeah. I was like, oh, it fell out, but it was.
I thought it was like smooth. Scratch.
Yeah, it was awesome. Perfect.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I'm just like, yeah. So that's where it's just because again, it's giving me the bigger picture, not being tunnel visioned. And if there's something that triggers me, because you're always going to have triggers, I can take a step back and be like, oh, okay, but this is the biggest. Or why is this triggering you? Blah, blah, blah. Where before I wouldn't have had the foresight to do that type of thing. Yeah.
Oh,
I could just talk your ear off.
I know. Well, I could. I'm like, so do we have like 5 more hours? Like, let's talk about everything. Let's talk about everything. I'll even talk about socks. Like,
I'm like, I love talking.
Oh, it's all good. I enjoy listening, and I enjoy throwing in bits and then just like finding a tangent. I'm like, oh, this one I'm gonna go. Yes. I'm gonna go with that one.
I love that.
And I want to know, who do you look up to, either personally or professionally? Or you can do one of each, or whatever you choose.
So professionally in this profession, it's so funny because I can put lots of people up on pedestals, and I have my whole life.
Yeah.
All the time. And I'm learning to not put people up on pedestals. But one person that I feel very aligned with and just feels right is one of my mentors. Her name's Danielle.
Yes. You can say the full name because other people don't know. But
Danielle Sarank. I'm like, that's where we met.
Yeah.
But she just, we've had her on our podcast a few times, and it just like, and when we've had her, like when I was learning under her, she just felt right. Like she's just so
Mm-hmm.
down to earth. And I think a big thing for me is somebody that's genuine and that you can tell that it's purity. I get really stuck on, like, I'm somebody who can just trust very easily. And then I get disappointed
Mm-hmm.
when you find out people have different, alternatives or blah, 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 blah. And I know we're all human, but she's just, she's just never let me down. Like, so
Yeah.
she's just always like, I've put her on that pedestal, and that's not fair on her, but she's just so relatable
Mm-hmm.
and real. And I get drawn to that, being relatable and real. And she's just the real deal. So definitely somebody that I look up to in the industry. Um, I look up to anybody that has the courage to move through this and go on this path. So, it's so funny because I, like, when I see our students or anybody that, we've worked with, like, it takes a lot of courage. And I respect that because I know how hard it was, because it was very hard for me to step outside of my comfort. And so being able to watch them progress like that, and to maybe not necessarily take the easier road, because when we're facing shadows, we are choosing to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I really look up to that and admire that somebody's able to do that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I'd like to add for the Danielle Srink part. She's so authentic. She's just who she is. She doesn't pretend.
No.
She is who she is. So when you're saying, like, it's a pedestal, but it feels like an attainable pedestal. It feels like I could grow up to be this person. It doesn't feel like, oh,
totally.
I could never be as good as them.
No,
it's not the admiration, like almost like a worship pedestal. It's, I want to step up towards being the person that she represents for me. Whereas it's like honor, integrity, compassion, and the energy she brings into her work, where it's like, I want to bring that pieces into me in my business and work it around to work for me, not copy, but use those pieces as an inspiration to pull
those
me forward.
Fundamentals. Yeah, she's like a breath of fresh air.
She is.
I just love listening to her. And I actually, just one more, okay, because I just was thinking,
go right ahead.
You know what, I wouldn't have gone on this path without Mandy, to be honest. She has pushed me. She continues to push me. I definitely admire her ability to just jump into something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I definitely, like, it, it, like, sorry. No, I'm like, no, you can cough.
Well, my water went down the wrong way, and I'm like, oh no, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No. Yeah, no, it's like, I guess like, I look at her and I think, like, she has definitely, like, went on this path and took 2 feet and jumped in and didn't look back. I was definitely the, like, let me put my toe in first, then my foot, then my other foot. Like, it takes, like, so, her being able to have that boldness and that confidence, and even having the confidence in me, has, like, and I just remember, like, looking up to her going, like, man, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could be like that. And you know what? She's helped me be like that. And she's kind of really helped push me. Like, I wouldn't be where I am without her. I wouldn't have done the podcast. I wouldn't have even probably done readings, because I was so scared to do any of it. And, like, even teaching, I remember the first class teaching, and many classes, I was so scared. But I drew on her confidence, like her being so solid. I was like, okay, I can be solid too. So yeah. I don't know if that's like admiring or I just respect. I don't know what it is, but I'm like,
it's a healthy admiration.
Yeah. I admire her confidence. Yeah.
I love, because I asked both of you the same question and you pretty much had the same answers.
No way.
You both said Danielle. And Mandy said
Danielle.
Her students, which is pretty much the same thing what you said for people you admire personally. And then you both said each other.
I don't know what she admires about me, but
oh, there's tons. Hello. Oh my gosh. Well, you're just gonna have to listen, and
okay,
then you'll see her words, what she says, because I'm not gonna do it justice. But yes, I'm just like, oh, of course, like you guys are just like so in sync. And I don't know how many times just talking to both of you now, like one-on-one, that I see so much of myself in both of you. Like I'll relate one part, like, yes, I'm so much like this. And then other person like, oh yes, I'm so much like this. So there's always something in one of you that someone can relate to.
I love
And
that.
like, or both. Like,
Yeah.
I think your appeal is so much broader because you're together. You amplify each other up.
Yeah.
And you complement each other, and you're not competing. Honestly, you're just lifting each other up, and it's just beautiful. And like, like sisterhood wise, everything wise, it's just like, it's beautiful. It just like, it gets me so excited. And I'm like, oh yes, I want a taste of that. I want a taste of you. I'm like,
I
which
love
is why
that.
like I love spending any time with you. I'm just like, oh yeah, anytime I'm in either your energy separate or together, it just magnetic and electric. And I know other people feel it too. So
you're so sweet. I'm like, that's so sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. Like, I just love it. Love you guys.
We feel definitely blessed for being able to do this together, and we recognize that that's a unique thing. We recognize that not everybody could do that, and sometimes we're like, how do we do this? Like, because it is something that a lot of people like, you have falling out, or you have different, it has to be very, very aligned. And that's just something, not to say we don't have our, tiffs and stuff like that. Oh God, we definitely have our little bickers. But it's just like, it still surprises us to this day that sometimes we're like, wow, like, literally the yin and yang fitting together. It was just crazy. So what I hate doing, she loves to do. What she hates doing, I love to do. It was written in the stars.
Well, you can tell that it was designed.
It totally was. Like, you can't deny that.
You're just like, this doesn't just happen.
No.
Like, we figured this out either like as souls or in a past life or something. You guys like worked out all these little kinks. Like, you do this, okay, cool.
Yeah, you do this,
you do this. Okay. And like, you just like hashed it out.
Yes.
To make this perfect plan.
And it's just crazy. Yeah. It's just it's so cool, because it just like amazes me how all of that kind of works. And we'll still have times where we're like, and there's the yin and the yang again, all the time. Yeah.
Love it. I'm just like, another little synchronous. You're like, of course.
I
love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with me today. I had so much fun. As always, I didn't expect anything less than a good time with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm like,
you're
like
welcome.
Wanting to know me. So that's so cool. I love it. Thank you.
Of course. I think more people want to know you than you think.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. It's fun.
Well, you're amazing. So of course they want to know you. Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Okay. You're welcome. And I'll have all your links to your stuff in the show notes, and hope so everybody can get in contact with you if they want to work with you further.
Awesome. Thank you.